Hey guys, settle in, get cozy, maybe dim the lights, find that perfect spot on the couch or in your bed, and let the gentle hum of your fan, or perhaps the distant sound of rain, lull you into a state of deep relaxation. This isn't just a story, it is a journey, a whispered history that unwinds slowly, inviting your mind to drift and wander. Take a deep, calming breath, and as you exhale, release any lingering tension from your day. Feel your shoulders drop, your jaw soften, and your eyelids grow a little heavier. Tonight, we're not just exploring a historical period. We're tracing the silent underground odyssey of a remarkable, humble, and often misunderstood traveler. A traveler who spent centuries in the dark, patiently waiting for recognition, a true testament to resilience and the quiet power of simply being. Before we begin our gentle descent into this story, if you find yourself enjoying these nightly journeys, if the rhythm of these words helps you unwind, please consider giving the video a gentle like and perhaps subscribing to the channel. It truly helps me continue crafting these tranquil narratives for you. And if you feel like it, in the quiet glow of your screen, let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from and what time it is for you. Knowing we're all sharing this moment of quiet across different corners of the world is a comforting thought. Now, let's begin. Let's ease into tonight's journey together, allowing the whispers of history to carry you gently into slumber. An asterisk tonight. Our journey begins not with a clamor of trumpets or the roar of an ocean, but in the hush of the highest peaks where the very air is a thin, cool whisper. Imagine, if you will, standing on an ancient, windswept plateau, high in the majestic Andes Mountains of Peru. Close your eyes and truly feel the environment around you. The silence here is profound, a thick velvet cloak that muffles all but the most elemental sounds. There are no distant sirens, no hum of traffic, no chatter of crowded streets. Just the delicate, almost imperceptible sigh of the wind as it brushes across the rugged terrain. A sound so soft it seems to be part of the silence itself. It's a sound that doesn't disturb but rather deepens the tranquility. A natural lullaby of the earth. The air itself is a revelation. It is incredibly thin, crisp, and pure, carrying with it the faint, clean scent of distant snow and ancient stone. With each gentle breath, you can feel its cool embrace fill your lungs, a refreshing lightness that calms the mind and slows the rhythm of your thoughts. It's an air that seems to have absorbed the very vastness of the landscape, imbued with an unhurried quality, as if time itself moves more slowly here, stretched out across the sprawling horizons. Above you, if it is night, the sky is an impossibly deep indigo, a celestial canvas sprinkled with an infinite dust of stars, each one a tiny shimmering jewel against the dark expanse. They seem closer here, brighter, as if you could almost reach out and trace their ancient patterns with your fingertips. In the faint, ethereal glow of the moon or the distant starlight, you can just discern the colossal silhouettes of snow-capped peaks, their formidable presence softened by the night, appearing as gentle giants sleeping under a watchful sky. These mountains have stood for millennia, silent witnesses to countless dawns and dusks, their stoic forms exuding an aura of timelessness and enduring peace. They are not merely geological formations, but ancient sentinels, guarding the secrets of the earth, their majestic heights reaching towards the heavens in quiet reverence. The ground beneath your feet is firm, rocky in places, covered in sparse, hardy vegetation that clings tenaciously to life, whispering stories of endurance and resilience. You might feel a subtle coolness rising from the earth, a deep, abiding chill that penetrates the soles of your feet, reminding you of the hidden depths below, of the vast, intricate network of roots and soil that supports this austere beauty. This is a place of primal quiet, an unspoiled sanctuary where the human footprint is light, almost ephemeral. Here, every rustle of a leaf, every distant, lonely call of a nocturnal bird is amplified by the profound stillness, drawing you deeper into the natural world. The vast emptiness is not desolate, but full of an ancient, breathing life, a silent energy that resonates with the slow, steady pulse of the planet. It's a landscape that invites contemplation, a canvas for the mind to wander freely, unburdened by the clamor of modernity. In this rare, pure atmosphere, far above the concerns of the lowland world, a sense of profound peace settles over you, a quiet harmony that gently encourages your own internal world to quieten, to slow its frantic pace, and to sink into a state of serene awareness. This is where our story truly begins, cradled in the arms of such majestic, silent beauty. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk now, let us shift our gaze, not upwards towards the star, dusted canopy, nor outwards to the panoramic sweep of the mountain range, but inwards. Let us turn our attention from the grand, expansive silence of the peaks to a silence far more intimate, far more profound, the deep, embracing silence of the earth itself, just beneath the surface. Imagine descending slowly, gently, through layers of cool, damp soil. Feel the sensation of the sun's warmth fading, replaced by a constant, stable coolness, a temperature that seems eternal, unchanging. This is a realm where sunlight never penetrates, where the vibrant hues of the world above are replaced by a uniform, comforting darkness. In this subterranean world, sound, as we know it, ceases to exist. There are no echoing winds, no distant animal cries, no human voices. Instead, there's only the profound quietude of geological time, a stillness so absolute that it feels almost palpable, like a soft, earthy blanket wrapped tightly around you. It is a silence pregnant with potential, a womb of quiet energy. Yet within this stillness, if you listen with the deepest part of your imagination, you might perceive the almost imperceptible hum of life, the slow, patient processes of nature at work, the gentle shifting of soil particles, the microscopic dance of fungi and bacteria, the silent, relentless journey of water seeping through the earth. These are not sounds in the conventional sense, but rather the quiet vibrations of a living, breathing planet, deeply, profoundly asleep yet endlessly active. And nestled within this cool, dark embrace, a tiny, unassuming world exists. It is here that our protagonist, the quiet heart of our story, resides. Buried deep, shielded from the sun's glare and the wind's touch, lies a single, humble entity, a wild, unremarkable tuber, an ancestor of the potato we know today. It is not seeking attention, not vying for light or fanfare. Instead, it is patiently, silently accumulating energy. Its form is simple, rounded, perhaps slightly irregular, a dull, earthy color that blends perfectly with its surroundings. It feels dense, robust, a small package of concentrated life force, waiting. Within its fibrous skin, a hidden heartbeat pulses, a slow, steady rhythm of biochemical transformation. Sugars are synthesized, starches are stored, cellular structures are meticulously formed. This is the quiet alchemy of life happening in darkness, a testament to the Earth's endless capacity for creation, for growth without grand pronouncements. It requires nothing but the soil, the water, and the quiet passage of time. There's no urgency here, no hurried striving, only the steady, inherent drive to be, to become, to persist. Imagine its texture, firm, cool to the touch, its surface perhaps slightly roughened by the soil it has embraced for so long. It holds within it the raw, unrefined essence of the earth, a direct connection to the ancient strata beneath our feet. This underground heart beats with the silent promise of future sustenance, a quiet miracle of nature unfolding in the dark. It is a symbol of patient resilience, of humble strength, a steadfast anchor in the ever-flowing river of time. This tiny, unassuming entity, hidden away from the world, is gathering its silent power, unaware of the incredible journey it is destined to embark upon, a journey that will span continents and centuries, forever altering the course of human history. For now, it simply rests, a silent heartbeat in the deep, cool dark, holding within its humble form an astonishing amount of unexpressed life. Asterisk, 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 high above this subterranean slumber, on the slopes of these very same majestic Andes, lived a people intimately connected to the land. These were the ancestors of the Inca, the quiet, observant inhabitants of the ancient mountains. For generations, they had watched the earth, listened to its whispers, and learned to decipher its subtle rhythms. They were not driven by conquest or grand declarations, but by the fundamental need for survival in a demanding, breathtakingly beautiful, yet often unforgiving environment. Their lives were a delicate dance with nature, a testament to harmony and sustainable living, a deeply symbiotic relationship with every plant and creature that shared their high-altitude home. It was in this context, amidst the daily tasks of tending to small plots of quinoa and maize, herding llamas, and gathering wild plants, that the first quiet partnership began to form with our humble tuber. The discovery wasn't a dramatic event, no sudden revelation accompanied by thunderclaps. Instead, it was a slow, gentle unfolding, born from careful observation and a deep respect for the earth's silent offerings. Perhaps a child playing near a patch of wild growth unearthed a strangely dense, edible root. Perhaps a llama, nibbling at the foliage, revealed the hidden treasure beneath. Or maybe an elder, with eyes accustomed to seeing beyond the obvious, noticed something peculiar about a specific plant, its humble leaves hinting at a treasure hidden below. The early interactions with this wild potato were characterized by a quiet reverence. These ancient mountain people didn't immediately see it as a commodity or a tool for wealth. They saw it as a gift from Pachamama, Mother Earth, a new source of nourishment to be approached with caution and gratitude. The first attempts at cultivation were not grand agricultural projects, but small, meticulous gestures. Imagine them with simple, hand-hewn digging sticks, carefully tilling small, terraced patches of earth on the mountainsides. These weren't vast fields, but intimate gardens, etched into the slopes like sacred patterns, designed to catch the meager rainfall and protect the fragile soil. The process of planting was a ritual in itself, performed with a deep, almost meditative focus. Each tuber, carefully selected, was gently placed into the cool, dark earth, a silent promise exchanged between human and plant. There was no mechanical roar, no hurried pace. Only the rhythmic scrape of wooden tools against soil, the gentle pressure of bare hands shaping the earth, and the soft rustle of leaves in the thin mountain air. The farmers, often working in pairs or small family groups, moved with an unhurried grace, their movements a living testament to patience and dedication. They would have spoken in low, calm tones, if at all, their voices blending seamlessly with the sounds of the wind and the distant calls of condors. As the plants grew, they were watched with a quiet intensity. The small, unassuming foliage, the delicate white or purple flowers, were observed with an understanding born of generations, spent in close proximity to nature. There was an unspoken agreement. The people would nurture the plant, protecting it from frost and pests, and in return the plant would offer its hidden bounty, its underground heart providing sustenance and a buffer against the harshness of the high-altitude environment. It was a partnership based on mutual respect and shared survival. The harvest, too, was a labor of love, a slow, methodical uncovering. Imagine hands weathered by sun and wind, carefully sifting through the soil, gently extracting each precious tuber. There was no waste, no carelessness. Every potato, no matter how small or misshapen, was valued for it represented life, warmth, and resilience. This was not just food, it was a sacred bond, an extension of the land itself. The potato became an integral part of their diet, not just as a filler, but as a staple, a cornerstone of their existence, providing the complex carbohydrates and nutrients necessary for life at such demanding altitudes. In these quiet mountain villages, the potato found its first true home, its first loyal companions. It was cherished, understood, and integrated into the very fabric of their culture, long before the outside world even knew of its existence. This early relationship was one of quiet symbiosis, a testament to the profound wisdom of people who truly lived, flirting with earth, not just it. It was here, in the secluded embrace of the Andes, that the potato began its long, silent journey from a wild root to an indispensable part of human civilization, nurtured by hands that understood its quiet strength and its boundless generosity. And in the slow, rhythmic cadence of their lives, the people and the potato found a harmony that would endure for centuries, a hidden chapter in a story that was only just beginning to unfold. The Andean sun, sharp and clear, begins its descent, painting the western slopes in hues of ochre and deep violet. As the last rays cling to the highest peaks, a profound cold seeps into the thin air, a silence settling heavy and absolute. This is the moment, in the ancient highlands, where wisdom born of necessity whispers through the frosted fields. Imagine the Andean farmers, their hands weathered by wind and sun, moving with a practiced grace among the humble potato plants. It is not just about cultivation, it is about conversation with the earth, a deep ancestral understanding of its rhythms and gifts. They carefully unearth the potatoes, not with haste, but with a reverence for each tuber, each small, earthy sphere holding the promise of sustenance. These aren't just any potatoes. They are often smaller, hardier varieties, specifically chosen for their resilience to the extreme conditions that define this land. Each one is a silent participant in a centuries-old ritual. The first step in this ancient alchemy, the making of shudio, begins with exposure. The freshly harvested potatoes, still bearing the cool kiss of the soil, are laid out in thin layers on straw mats. These mats are placed on the high, open ground where the forces of nature can perform their intricate dance. You might hear the faint rustle of dry straw as the potatoes settle, a whisper of preparation under the vast, indifferent sky. As night deepens and almost alien cold descends, the air becomes so crisp it seems to crackle. Water within the potato cells, responding to this plummeting temperature, begins to freeze. Tiny ice crystals form, expanding, gently rupturing the cell walls. It is a slow internal transformation, unseen but deeply impactful. Picture the surface of each potato becoming subtly hardened by the frost, a delicate, almost crystalline sheen forming as the hours of darkness stretch on. There is no sound of this freezing, only the profound silence of the mountain night, perhaps punctuated by the distant, lonely call of a night bird, or the whisper of a high-altitude breeze carrying the scent of dry earth and hardy mountain herbs. Then, with the dawn, the sun returns, a benevolent, powerful orb in the vast blue. Its rays, unfiltered by heavy atmosphere, strike the frozen potatoes with intense warmth. The ice within begins to thaw slowly, deliberately. The once rigid structure of the potato softens. Its internal water is released from their icy grip. This is not a quick melt. It is a gradual, profound loosening, a gentle persuasion of the elements. You might almost feel the warmth radiating from the earth as the sun rises higher, drying the dew, drawing moisture from everything it touches. This cycle of intense freezing and thawing repeats, often for several nights and days, each repetition further breaking down the potato's internal structure, preparing it for the next stage of its transformation. After several days of this elemental dance, the potatoes are ready for the next, more tactile phase. They are gathered, still bearing the marks of sun and frost, and brought to a designated area. Here, a different kind of rhythm begins. The farmers, often barefoot, step onto the softened potatoes. Imagine the sensation of the yielding flesh beneath their feet, a gentle squelch as the remaining water is slowly, deliberately pressed out. It is a rhythmic, almost meditative process. Step, press, lift, step, press, lift, press, lift. Each movement is slow, considered, aimed at extracting every possible drop of moisture. The sound is soft, muffled, a steady, ancient beat against the backdrop of the quiet mountains. As the water is expelled, the skins loosened by the freezing and thawing become easier to remove. Sometimes they are simply peeled off by hand, other times the repeated trampling helps to slough them away. The raw, exposed flesh of the potato, now compressed and significantly reduced in volume, takes on a new, dense texture. It is no longer plump and round, but flattened, almost leathery. Finally, these pressed, deskinned potatoes are spread out once more under the relentless Andean sun. This is the ultimate drying phase. The dry, thin air and the powerful sun collaborate to draw out the last vestiges of moisture, preserving the potato in its most stable form. Day after day, they lie exposed, gradually shrinking, becoming lighter, harder, almost stony. The sun's warmth beats down, constant, patient, transforming the potato from a fragile tuber into a durable, almost eternal staple. The wind, ever present in the high plains, acts as an additional, gentle dryer, rustling through the drying potatoes, carrying away any lingering humidity. The result is suchio, small, shriveled, almost black lumps that bear little resemblance to their fresh counterparts. They are brittle, lightweight, and can be stored for years, even decades in the dry, cool mountain air. This is sustenance, guaranteed, a silent promise against the unpredictable harshness of the Andes. It is a triumph of patience and ancient wisdom, a testament to understanding the very forces of nature and bending them to the will of survival. The process is slow, deeply ingrained in the land, a quiet hum of life sustained through careful, deliberate action. Each step, from the sun's embrace to the frost's bite, from the gentle tread of feet to the final, patient drying, is a part of a silent conversation between humanity and the earth, a whispered secret of enduring life. The scent of dry earth, the faint, almost imperceptible sweetness of the drying potato, the profound stillness of the high altitude, all combine to create an atmosphere of quiet industry, of deep connection to the land and its ancient, slow rhythms. You might almost feel the coolness of the air, the gentle pressure of the wind, the unwavering warmth of the sun, as these humble tubers undergo their profound and patient transformation, securing life for another year, another generation. The quiet wisdom of the Andes, stored not in scrolls or grand monuments, but in the humble, shriveled form of Tinchio, patiently waiting much like the mountains themselves. Asterisk, 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 centuries later, the quiet, persistent hum of life in the Andes was abruptly shattered. The year was the 16th century, and a very different kind of rhythm was introduced to these ancient lands. No longer the gentle cadence of planting and harvesting, or the slow, deliberate process of tunchio, making, but a clangor of metal, the shouts of unfamiliar tongues, and the relentless driving beat of ambition. Imagine, for a moment, the landscape as it had been for millennia, vast, untouched mountain ranges, valleys carved by time, and small, meticulously cultivated terraces clinging to the slopes. Here, the potato grew, a silent, unheralded champion, deeply interwoven into the fabric of daily life. Its leaves rustled in the breeze, its flowers, modest and unassuming, bloomed in white and purple hues, and beneath the rich soil, its tubers swelled with life, giving energy. The people knew its worth, cherished its resilience, and understood its quiet power. They walked among the fields with respect, their bare feet feeling the cool, familiar earth, their hands knowing the texture of the soil and the plant. Then across the vast blue expanse of the ocean came the ships, great wooden vessels, their sails billowing like strange clouds, bearing men clad in gleaming armor. Their arrival was heralded by the scent of salt and foreign spices carried on the wind, the creak of timber, and the distinct, jarring sound of European languages echoing through valleys that had known only indigenous tongues. They were seekers, driven by a powerful, singular obsession. Gold. They disembarked with a fierce energy, their eyes scanning the landscape not for fertile ground or sustainable crops, but for the tell-tale glint of precious metals. Their boots, heavy and unaccustomed to the delicate Andean terrain, trampled over the very plants that sustained the local populations. They brought with them maps, not of agricultural bounty, but of mineral veins, tools not for planting, but for digging and refining. Their worldview was dominated by a lustrous yellow metal, a substance that glittered but could not nourish. As they moved through the highlands, they saw, but did not truly perceive. They saw the terraced fields, green with unfamiliar vegetation, but their gaze slid past the leaves, past the humble flowers, searching always for the shimmering promise of a buried treasure. They might have seen the indigenous people digging in their fields, extracting these strange, lumpy roots from the earth. But they would have dismissed it as a curious, perhaps primitive, form of sustenance. Their own diets, built on grains and meats from their European homeland, offered no frame of reference for appreciating this subterranean marvel. The potato, the silent king of the Andes, continued to grow, patiently, unfailingly, beneath the very feet of these invaders. Its presence was so ubiquitous, so fundamental to the landscape that perhaps it simply faded into the background, part of the unremarkable scenery. For the Europeans, anything that did not sparkle, anything that did not promise immediate, tangible wealth, was often overlooked, considered unworthy of their notice. They were obsessed with the glory of conquest, the acquisition of riches, and the projection of power, all of which were expressed in gold and silver, not in the quiet, earthy generosity of a root vegetable. Imagine a small group of conquistadors, perhaps resting by a stream, their armor glinting under the high sun. Beside them, almost underfoot, grows a patch of potato plants, their leaves a vibrant green, their small flowers a soft lavender. The Europeans might notice the plant, perhaps commenting on its unusual appearance or wondering if it had any medicinal properties. But the idea of consuming its hidden root, of understanding its profound nutritional value, simply did not occur to them. They were too busy discussing the rumors of hidden Inca gold, the location of the next rich mine, or the logistics of transporting silver back to the coast. Their expeditions often involved extensive digging, but always with the wrong intent. They tore into hillsides, diverted rivers, and ransacked ancient burial sites, all in pursuit of the yellow gleam. The irony was profound and silent. The true wealth, the enduring sustenance that could feed armies and populations for generations, lay quietly beneath their very shovels, ignored, sometimes even inadvertently destroyed in their frantic search for a different kind of riches. They were blind to the quiet miracle thriving in the soil, deaf to the silent promise of enduring life it offered. The potato, resilient and patient, continued its work. It converted sunlight into energy, drew nutrients from the earth, and swelled its tubers, even as the chaos of conquest raged above. It was a silent witness to a clash of civilizations, an observer of human folly and ambition. Its value was intrinsic, elemental, utterly disconnected from the fluctuating desires of men for perceived treasures. It offered honest, unadorned energy, a stark contrast to the deceptive glitter of gold that inflamed the hearts of the newcomers. Some might have tasted it, out of curiosity or sheer necessity when other provisions ran low, but without proper preparation or a cultural context for its consumption, it would have seemed unpalatable, foreign, perhaps even suspicious. The leaves and fruits of the potato plant are, after all, toxic, belonging to the same family as nightshade. Ignorance and suspicion would have further reinforced its lowly status in the European mind. It was simply a strange root from a strange land. Another curiosity to be noted, perhaps, but certainly not a staple to be embraced. So, the vast majority of the potato plants continued their quiet lives, their subterranean bounty untouched by the hands of the new arrivals. The gold they sought was finite, extracted, and soon shipped away. The potato, however, remained an inexhaustible, renewable treasure, patiently waiting for a time when its true worth would be recognized, when hungry eyes would finally look down, not for glinting metal, but for the humble life-giving earth. It was a period of profound oversight, a historical blind spot where the true riches of a continent lay hidden in plain sight, dismissed by those who saw only what they wished to see, and whose visions were clouded by the illusion of gold. The quiet resilience of the potato stood in stark contrast to the fleeting, tumultuous passions of men, a testament to the earth's steady generosity, awaiting a different kind of understanding, a different kind of embrace. Asterisk, 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 the potato's journey across the vast expanse of the ocean was not heralded by fanfare or packed in velvet. It did not travel as a precious commodity, carefully documented and guarded. Instead, its first transatlantic voyage was a humble, almost accidental affair, a testament to its unassuming nature. It likely journeyed nestled among other botanical specimens, a curiosity perhaps collected by a diligent botanist, or a curious friar, or perhaps simply tossed into the ship's stores as a robust, long-lasting provision for the sailors on their arduous journey. Imagine the ship itself, a wooden behemoth against the endless blue. It was a world of its own, a labyrinth of creaking timbers, taut ropes, and billowing sails. Below deck, in the cavernous hold, was where the potato's quiet odyssey truly began. Here sunlight never penetrated. Absolute darkness reigned, thick and perpetual, broken only by the occasional flicker of a lantern when cargo was shifted or inspected. The air in the hold was a heavy, stagnant blend of smells, the pervasive dampness of the ocean seeping through the planks. The pungent aroma of tar and pitch used to seal the hull, the metallic tang of bilge water sloshing gently below the floorboards, and the mixed scents of other provisions, salted meat, dried fish, hardtack biscuits, barrels of wine and water. Intermingled with these were the musky odors of various supplies, bales of cloth, and the faint, earthy scent of other botanical samples, some perhaps already beginning to decay. The potato lay amongst this cacophony of smells, a small quiet presence in a world of constant motion and confinement. The ship itself was a living, breathing entity, constantly in motion. There was the ceaseless, rhythmic creak and groan of the wooden hull as it strained against the waves, a symphony of stress and resilience. The masts swayed, the rigging sang a high-pitched, melancholic tune in the wind, and below deck, every plank, every beam, seemed to have its own voice. The gentle, yet persistent, rolling and pitching of the ship was a constant companion. Sometimes a violent lurch would send loose objects skittering across the floor, or cause barrels to shift with a heavy thud, for the potato unmoored from the steady earth it had always known. This was an entirely new sensation, a dizzying, relentless dance with the ocean. In this deep, cool, and perpetually dark environment, the potato entered a state of suspended animation. It was a quiet struggle for survival. Some tubers, less robust or perhaps bruised during handling, might succumb to rot, their quiet decay adding another subtle layer to the hold's complex aroma. Others, however, would endure. Their skins, designed by nature to protect them from the elements of the Andes, now served as a shield against the damp, airless conditions of the ship. Their internal energies, meant to fuel new growth in the spring, now powered their silent persistence through weeks and months of darkness. Time became an abstract concept in the hold. There were no sunrises or sunsets, no changing seasons, only the continuous rocking, the unending darkness, and the slow, grinding passage of days that bled into weeks and weeks into months. The journey across the Atlantic was not a sprint but a marathon, a test of endurance for everything and everyone on board. Sailors above deck marked the passage of time with the sun, stars, and weary routine. But in the hold, the potato existed in a timeless void, its biological clock ticking slowly, patiently, waiting for some unknown signal, some shift in its environment. Perhaps, occasionally, a sailor would descend into the hold, lantern in hand, its flickering light casting dancing shadows on the stacked cargo. The potato might briefly catch a glimpse of this fleeting illumination, a stark contrast to the profound darkness it had grown accustomed to. A hand might brush against it, moving other provisions, or perhaps selecting a few tubers to be cooked for a simple starchy meal, providing a welcome, if uncelebrated, relief from the monotony of salted beef and hardtack. For those that were chosen, their journey would end in a simmering pot, their earthy flavor a small comfort in the vast, indifferent ocean. But for the others, the journey continued, their destination unknown, their purpose yet to be revealed. This was not a voyage of discovery for the potato itself. It was a journey of unwitting transport. It was a seed of future change, carried silently, inadvertently, across a vast cultural and geographical chasm. The grand ambitions of the expedition sung by the quest for richness, the expansion of empires, the charting of new worlds, 13 played out on the decks above, under the open sky. But deep within the ship's belly, a quieter, more profound journey was underway, a journey of a humble tuber carrying the genetic code of resilience, awaiting its eventual, if initially reluctant, introduction to a new continent. It was a journey into the unknown, a passage from a land where it was revered to a world where it would be met with suspicion, fear, and centuries of slow, arduous acceptance. The potato, in its dark, rocking confinement, remained oblivious, a silent traveler carrying a world of potential within its rough, unassuming skin. It was simply enduring, waiting, surviving the long, endless night of the hold, cradled by the rhythmic pulse of the ocean, moving ever eastward towards an unforeseen destiny. The creak and groan of timbers, a symphony of wood protesting against the relentless push and pull of the ocean, had become a constant lullaby. For months, it had been the potato's world, a swaying, dark and damp realm deep within the belly of a Spanish galleon. No sunlight had touched its skin since it was gently unearthed from the rich soils of the Andes. No mountain breeze had whispered across its surface, just the pervasive scent of salt, tar, and human endeavors, a confined universe of motion and shadow. Finally, the rhythm changed. The violent pitching lessened, replaced by a softer roll. Then a gentle glide, a distant murmur, a chorus of unfamiliar voices, began to filter through the heavy planks and layers of cargo. The subtle shift in sound, the faint scent of land, a composite of sun-warmed earth, olive groves, and the faint sweet decay of harbor life, signaled the end of its vast, uncomprehending journey. The ship, with its precious, yet utterly unrecognized cargo, had found its mooring in a Spanish port. Unloading was a slow, methodical affair, a ballet of ropes and grunting men, casks of wine, bales of textiles, bundles of spices, and somewhere amidst it all, a small, nondescript crate or sack containing the humble tuber. It was not singled out, not celebrated, not even carefully catalogued. It was merely another item, perhaps the forgotten curiosity, a botanical sample among many, or a residual provision for the long voyage home. The sun, when it finally kissed its dusty container again, felt alien, a sharp, unblinking eye after an eternity of darkness. From the bustling, sun-baked chaos of the port, the journey inland was equally undramatic. Perhaps it was loaded onto a sturdy wooden cart, its rough, hewn wheels rumbling over ancient cobblestones, then crunching softly on dirt paths. The landscape unfolded slowly, a tapestry of ochre fields, silvery olive trees, and the occasional stone farmhouse nestled against a distant hill. The air, though warmer than the crisp Indian heights, still carried a dry, clean scent, a hint of rosemary and thyme from the sun. Baked Garrig. The final destination for this particular potato was not a royal court or a bustling market, but a quiet walled sanctuary, a monastery. High stone walls, centuries old, rose against the brilliant blue sky, enclosing a world apart. Here, the clamor of the outside world faded into a gentle hush, punctuated only by the distant tolling of bells, the soft rustle of monastic robes, and the gentle cooing of doves nesting in the eaves. Within these hallowed grounds lay a garden, meticulously tended by cloistered monks. It was a place of ordered beauty and practical sustenance, where rows of medicinal herbs, fragrant with their healing essences, grew alongside robust vegetables. Lavender bushes exhaled their calming perfume. Rosemary sprigs stood tall and proud, and the dark, rich soil yielded its bounty year after year. Into this peaceful, sun-drenched sanctuary, the Andean traveler was finally introduced. A monk, his hands gnarled, but gentle from years of tending the earth, knelt, his rough wool habit brushed against the damp soil as he carefully prepared a small patch. He did not know its name nor its purpose, only that it was a plant from the distant, mysterious New World, sent by a colleague in Seville. With a quiet reverence born of long hours in contemplation and communion with nature, he placed the unassuming tuber into the cool, dark earth. He patted the soil gently, a silent blessing, then sprinkled it with water from a clay jug. The act was one of simple curiosity, a hopeful experiment, rather than an active recognition of its profound future. Weeks turned into a slow procession of days, each marked by the rising and setting sun, the chanting of matins and vespers. Slowly, patiently, a small green shoot pushed its way through the loosened soil. It was a miracle of life, unfolding in miniature, observed with quiet interest by the monks during their daily rounds. They watched as delicate leaves unfurled, reaching towards the Spanish sun, so different yet so similar to the distant sun that warmed its ancestral home. The plant grew, modest and unassuming, much like the life lived within the monastery walls. It flowered as many plants do, with blooms that were unexpectedly charming. But the true heart of the plant, the hidden treasure beneath the earth, remained a mystery. The monks, learned in ancient texts and the properties of local flora, scratched their tonsured heads. They knew how to harvest beans, how to press grapes, how to dry herbs. But this new arrival, its roots were not like carrots or turnips, its leaves were not for salad, its flowers, though pretty, offered no obvious fruit. They observed its growth, its resilience, its quiet self-sufficiency. But the vital question remained unanswered, hanging unspoken in the peaceful, sun-drenched air of the cloister garden. What is it for? How do we eat this quiet gift from the earth? Its journey across oceans had ended, but its long wait for understanding, for true recognition, had only just begun. It lay dormant, a silent promise in the Spanish soil, patiently awaiting the moment its true purpose would be revealed. The soft earth, the gentle breeze, the distant murmur of monastic prayers, Footy all conspired to cradle this humble, hidden potential in a sustained, quiet slumber. Its destiny, however, lay far beyond the quiet contemplation of these peaceful walls. The world, still oblivious, would soon be forced to take a closer, more scientific look. The world of scholarship in Europe was a realm of hushed libraries, parchment scrolls, and the scratch of quill on paper. It was a slower, more deliberate world than our own, where discoveries were meticulously documented, debated, and painstakingly shared across continents through letters and botanical specimens. It was into this realm that the quiet traveler from the Andes, the potato, began its journey towards a formal identity, albeit still not its true culinary recognition. Among the towering figures of this era was Carolus Clusius, a Flemish botanist whose name would forever be entwined with the potato's early European history. Clusius was a man of immense curiosity, a meticulous observer, and an indefatigable cataloger of the natural world. His studies were not driven by hunger, but by an insatiable desire for knowledge, for understanding the vast, interconnected tapestry of life on Earth. He was one of the first to receive specimens of this peculiar plant from Spain, likely through his extensive network of correspondents and fellow scholars. Imagine a quiet study, high-ceilinged and filled with the dry, comforting scent of old books and dried herbs. Sunlight, softened by tall windows, falls upon a heavy wooden table. On this table, laid out with surgical precision, are the various parts of the potato plant, a leafy stem carefully pressed and dried, a delicate cluster of its pale, almost ethereal flowers, and most importantly, the unassuming tubers themselves, cleaned of earth. Their eyes distinct and somewhat uncanny. Clusius, or one of his diligent assistants, would lean over these specimens, his brow furrowed in concentration. With small, finely crafted tools, he would dissect a flower, examining its pistil and stamens under a magnifying glass, a marvel of early optical science. He would measure the length of leaves, count the number of petals, describe the exact shade of purple or white in the blooms. Every detail, however minute, was deemed significant, recorded in elegant Latin script in his botanical notebooks. The soft rustle of turning pages, the faint scratch of the quill, the methodical breathing of the scholar's swind. These were the sounds that accompanied the potato's formal christening. It was here, in such a study, that the potato was granted its academic identity. Clusius carefully compared it to other known plants, noting its affinities and divergences. He placed it firmly within the Solanaceae family, a connection that, while botanically accurate, would paradoxically contribute to its slow acceptance as food. Its scientific name, Pisolanum tuberosum, was bestowed Thurfine a label of precise classification, a testament to its physical attributes. Physolanumor for its kinship with other nightshades, and Forntuberosumor for its distinct underground tubers. This naming was a quiet, almost ceremonial moment, elevating it from a mere curiosity to a recognized species within the grand scheme of European science. The process didn't stop at naming. artists trained in the delicate art of botanical illustration were employed to capture its likeness. Their hands, steady and precise, would render every aspect of the plant onto heavy parchment. The intricate venation of a leaf, the subtle blush on a developing tuber, the exact arrangement of stamens within a flower fundy. All were meticulously reproduced with charcoal, ink, and sometimes delicate watercolors. These illustrations, more than mere pictures, were visual records, scientific documents that would allow scholars across Europe to identify and understand this new arrival without ever seeing the living plant. These meticulously drawn plates, bound into heavy folios like Clusius's Civerariorum Plantarum Historia, History of Rare Plants, became the potato's first official portrait, its debut in the printed world. Copies of these texts, and often dried specimens, were then carefully packed and dispatched across the continent. They journeyed to universities in Padua, to royal gardens in Paris, to the burgeoning scientific societies of London. Each package, each letter, each new botanical drawing represented a silent step in the potato's gradual assimilation into European consciousness. Yet, despite all this scholarly attention, all this painstaking documentation, its true potential remained largely unperceived, like a secret whispered only to the soil. It was admired for its botanical interest, classified for its scientific novelty, and illustrated for its visual uniqueness. But its destiny as a fundamental food source, a silent savior against famine, remained hidden beneath the surface of academic inquiry. The botanists, in their pursuit of knowledge, saw its structure, its classification, its place in the natural order. They saw its Staven form, but not its Staven function, as sustenance. The humble tuber, patiently waiting below ground, was still merely an object of study, a silent page in a grand unfolding botanical encyclopedia. Its beauty, however, was about to catch the eye of a different kind of observer, leading to yet another curious detour in its long journey. In the elegant gardens of Europe's nobility, amidst the vibrant hues of tulips and roses, a new kind of beauty began to emerge. It was delicate, unassuming, yet carried the subtle allure of the exotic, a whisper from a distant, unknown land. This was the flower of the potato, a bloom that, for a significant period, garnered more attention and admiration than the nourishing treasure lying hidden beneath the soil. Picture a grand estate, perhaps in a French chateau or an English manor. Ladies in rustling silk gowns and gentlemen in finely tailored coats would stroll along gravel paths, admiring the latest botanical marvels. The potato plant, with its modest green foliage, would stand quietly in a carefully manicured bed, often alongside other ornamental curiosities imported from the burgeoning empires. And from its quiet stems the flowers would unfurl, a silent testament to nature's understated artistry. These flowers were not flamboyant like a peony, nor intoxicatingly fragrant like a jasmine. Instead, they possessed a subtle, almost ethereal charm. Their petals, typically 5 in number, might be a pristine white, a soft lavender, or a deeper, more regal shade of purple, often fading gently towards the center. At their heart, a cluster of bright yellow stamens formed a striking contrast, a tiny sunburst against the cool backdrop of the petals. They were elegant in their simplicity, a quiet declaration of beauty that resonated with the refined aesthetic of the European aristocracy. The fascination was rooted in novelty. Anything new from the Americas, the so-called New World, carried an intrinsic allure. The potato flower, appearing as a fresh and unusual bloom, quickly became a fashionable accessory. It is said, though perhaps apocryphally, that even Queen Marie Antoinette, a trendsetter of her time, once adorned her elaborate coiffure with the delicate purple blossoms of the potato. Whether true or not, the anecdote captures the prevailing sentiment. The flower was chic, a symbol of cultivated taste and access to exotic imports. Gentlemen might pin a small sprig to their lapels, and ladies would arrange them in small, delicate bouquets or use them to decorate their bonnets. This period was a beautiful misunderstanding. People admired the plant's superficial charm, its aesthetic appeal. They celebrated the ephemeral beauty of its flowers, allowing these delicate blooms to take center stage in their ornamental gardens and fashionable attire. The potato, the silent traveler, was finally receiving attention, but for all the wrong reasons. Its true purpose, its immense nutritional value, remained stubbornly ignored, overshadowed by its more visible, yet ultimately less significant, adornments. The irony was palpable. While the nobility praised the flower, the hidden root, the true heart of the plant, remained an object of suspicion and even fear. The European mind, steeped in tradition and wary of the unknown, found something unsettling about a plant whose most valuable part grew unseen, buried in the earth like a subterranean secret. This paradox created a strange duality: adoration for the delicate blooms above ground and apprehension for the powerful, yet unrecognized potential below. The gentle breeze might carry the faint, grassy scent of the potato leaves, mingling with the stronger perfumes of roses and honeysuckle in the noble gardens. The soft colors of the flowers would blend harmoniously with other cultivated beauties, creating a tableau of cultivated splendor. Yet, beneath the meticulously tilled soil, the very sustenance that could feed nations lay dormant, waiting for a different kind of gaze, a more fundamental understanding. The flower was a fleeting moment of celebrity, a brief period where the potato was admired for its outward appearance rather than its profound inner strength. This appreciation, though misplaced, was a step towards its broader acceptance, however indirect. But the shadow of its lineage, the subtle truth of its botanical family would soon emerge, casting a fresh wave of suspicion over its hidden, nourishing core, and prolonging its silent wait for true embrace. The quiet beauty of its bloom would momentarily mask a deeper, more primal fear. It belongs to the botanical family known as Solanaceae, a name that might not stir any particular unease in the gentle hum of our modern world, but one that, for the inquiring minds of 16th century Europe, was whispered with a distinct note of caution, even dread. This family, you see, was home to some of the most notorious and feared plants in their known natural world. Imagine, for a moment, the meticulous etchings in an ancient herbal, depicting the sinister beauty of belladonna, its dark, glistening berries, so deceptively alluring, promising a sweet taste that led only to madness and oblivion. Or the grotesque, often humanoid roots of the mandrake steeped in folklore and superstition, believed to shriek when pulled from the earth, and whispered to possess potent, often dark, magical properties. There was henbane, too, with its sticky, hairy leaves and unpleasant scent, known to induce hallucinations and a deep, unsettling stupor. And of course, the aptly named deadly nightshade, its venomous touch a stark reminder of nature's formidable power. These were not just curiosities, they were plants of significant consequence, known to healers and poisoners alike. Their leaves, their flowers, their fruits, their very presence in the landscape evoked a deep, primal fear, a fear born of experience, and countless grim tales passed down through generations. People knew the signs. They recognized the distinctive structure of the flowers, the particular way the leaves unfurled, the general architecture of these toxic relatives. And when the potato arrived, a newcomer from a distant, unknown land, it brought with it an unsettling familiarity. Its leaves, in their broad green expanse, bore a resemblance. Its delicate, star-shaped flowers, often a pale white, a soft lavender, or a deeper purple, mirroring the hues found on the very plants known to cause paralysis and death. To the untrained, or even the cautiously trained, eye of the time, the visual cues were too close for comfort. Imagine a farmer, perhaps, walking through a newly planted plot in a monastic garden, having been told that these strange tubers had arrived from the New World. He kneels, his fingers sifting the cool, damp earth, and brushes aside a leaf to inspect a budding flower. He sees the 5 fused petals, the prominent central anthers, the way the sepals cup the developing bud, and a chill runs down his spine. This pattern, this design, it is too similar to the plants he teaches his children to avoid at all costs. The common lore of the countryside held that all plants sharing a certain appearance, a certain general structure, were likely to share a certain nature. And if that nature was poisonous for one, it was surely poisonous for all its kin. The lack of immediate, widespread understanding of botany, as we know it today, meant that categorization was often based on superficial resemblances rather than deep genetic analysis. A plant's family was determined by visual likeness, by the shape of its leaves, the arrangement of its flowers, the texture of its stem. And the potato, in its innocent newness, was guilty by association. It was a silent, unassuming guest in a new land, yet it carried the indelible mark of a notorious lineage. It was like a stranger arriving in a village, carrying the surname of a known outlaw, even if their own hands were clean. The suspicion, the distrust, was immediate and deeply rooted. The very idea of a plant being both food and poison was, for many, contradictory and terrifying. How could one distinguish? If the leaves of the belladonna could kill, and the potato's leaves looked somewhat similar, how could one be sure that the subterranean growth was not merely a more insidious, slower, acting form of the same deadly substance? The fears were not abstract, they were practical, rooted in the very real danger of accidental poisoning. There were tales, perhaps apocryphal, of people trying to eat the berries of the potato plant, which are indeed mildly toxic, and falling ill, further reinforcing the notion that this new arrival was inherently dangerous. The cool, dark earth, which had always been the potato sanctuary, now became a source of suspicion in Europe. While grains grew upwards towards the sun, a symbol of divine bounty and purity, the potato concealed its edible parts beneath the soil. In the hidden realm, a place often associated with darker, more primal forces. This subterranean nature, combined with its nightshade heritage, cast a long, lingering shadow over its potential as a food source. It was a quiet, almost imperceptible barrier, built not of stone or wood, but of deep-seated fear and botanical misunderstanding, effectively keeping the humble potato buried, not just in the ground, but in the realm of the suspect and the unknown. The whispering of the wind through the fields of Europe carried not just the scent of unfamiliar flora, but the silent, persistent murmur of apprehension regarding this new, unsettling visitor. It was not enough to observe that some indigenous peoples across the vast ocean consumed it. Their ways were strange, their lands distant, their knowledge considered rudimentary by many European minds. The direct, local, palpable experience with its family members, the plants that caused convulsions, delirium, and often a peaceful yet permanent stillness, was far more persuasive. And so, the potato, patiently growing beneath the soil, remained largely untouched by human hands for sustenance, caught in the silent, chilling embrace of its dangerous relatives. Imagine the subtle anxiety that would settle over a community when a new, unfamiliar plant, especially one with such a dubious family tree, was introduced. It was a world where illness was often mysterious, its causes poorly understood, and remedies often ineffective. The stakes were incredibly high. A misstep, a wrong choice of food, could mean agonizing sickness or even death for an entire family. This ingrained caution, born of necessity and hard-won experience with the natural world, made them deeply hesitant to embrace anything that bore even a passing resemblance to the known harbingers of harm. The potato's journey from a silent, nurturing companion in the Andes to a feared outsider in Europe was, in this sense, a journey from quiet acceptance to profound, almost primal, suspicion, all because of the quiet, enduring shadow cast by its botanical kin. The ground beneath the newly introduced potato plants remained largely undisturbed, not because it held no potential, but because it held too much perceived risk. Each leaf that unfurled, each flower that bloomed, served as a quiet visual reminder to the wary observers that this was a plant linked to the very edge of human experience, where sustenance could turn to sorrow and life to the long, deep sleep. The earth, which had once been its secure embrace, now seemed to hold it captive, hidden beneath a blanket of ancient fears and ancestral warnings, a silent testament to the powerful, often irrational, influence of lineage and perception. This fear of its dangerous relatives was not an active, raging terror, but a creeping, pervasive unease, like a persistent dampness in the cellar, always present, always reminding you of unseen decay. It was the kind of fear that led to avoidance, to quiet disdain, rather than outright destruction. For the potato, it meant a long, solitary wait in the European soil, its nutritional gifts remaining largely unappreciated, its destiny delayed by the ghost of its botanical family tree. It patiently awaited the day when observation, rather than resemblance, would finally prove its harmless, life-giving nature, slowly peeling away the layers of suspicion that clung to it like the earth itself. The quiet murmurs of doubt about the potato's origins and its family connections soon began to solidify into concrete, often fantastical, beliefs. These were not just scientific hypotheses. They were stories, whispers, warnings passed from neighbor to neighbor, from village elder to apprentice, creating a dense, almost impenetrable fog of prejudice. The fear of its nightshade relatives was merely the root. The rumors were the thorny branches that spread far and wide, intertwining with existing superstitions and anxieties. The potato, unassuming and silent in its dark underground world, became a canvas upon which human fears were vividly painted. One of the most insidious and widely circulated rumors was the belief that consuming potatoes could cause leprosy. Imagine the horror this would have invoked in a society that knew little about disease transmission, and even less about its cures. Leprosy, with its disfiguring lesions and long, agonizing progression, was one of the most dreaded afflictions of the age. It meant ostracization, a life lived on the fringes, marked by suffering. Why would people link a harmless tuber to such a devastating illness? Perhaps it was the potato's gnarled, irregular shape, particularly some older or less perfectly formed varieties that resembled the nodular lesions of the disease. Or perhaps, in the absence of any other explanation for the spread of unfamiliar ailments, the unknown newcomer was simply a convenient scapegoat. The mind, when confronted with mystery, often seeks patterns, even false ones. And the idea of a new, strange food causing a terrible, strange disease would have resonated deeply with the pervasive anxieties about epidemics and divine punishment. The whispers would have traveled from mouth to ear in dimly lit taverns, by flickering hearth fires, or during the quiet communal tasks in the fields. Have you heard? One peasant might begin, lowering their voice. They say the devil's fruit, that strange root from the Americas, brings the slow-wasting sickness. The one that turns your skin to scales and your flesh to rotten wood. The lack of immediate evidence didn't matter. The power of suggestion, especially when tapping into pre-existing fears, was immense. People would point to a new arrival in a village, recently afflicted by a skin ailment, and someone would inevitably recall that they had perhaps seen them handling those peculiar tubers. Cause and effect, however tenuous, were quickly established in the fertile ground of superstition. Another equally terrifying rumor was its supposed link to scrofula, or king's evil, a form of tuberculosis that manifested as swelling and lesions of the lymph nodes, particularly in the neck. While often treated with the royal touch by monarchs, it was a persistent and often debilitating condition. Again, the irregular, lumpy appearance of some potatoes might have been enough to draw a visual parallel. The thought of ingesting something that could cause such internal corruption, leading to visible, painful swellings, would have been deeply unsettling. It tapped into the fear of hidden diseases, of insidious agents working from within to manifest outward signs of suffering. The potato, growing unseen in the dark earth, was easily cast as such a hidden agent, bringing forth these terrible, slow-acting maladies. But perhaps the most damning and evocative epithet given to the potato was the devil's apple. This moniker encapsulated not only the fear of disease, but also a profound theological and moral anxiety. Why devil's apple? Firstly, its subterranean nature. In a deeply religious era, anything that grew hidden beneath the earth, away from the purifying light of the sun, was immediately suspect. Grains, fruits, and vegetables that grew upwards, reaching for the heavens, were seen as blessings from God. But a food that thrived in the dark, the realm traditionally associated with infernal forces, raised immediate red flags. It was seen as unclean, perhaps even unholy, a product of the underworld. Consider the symbolism: the apple, a fruit central to the biblical narrative of temptation and original sin. To call the potato the devil's apple was to imply it was a forbidden fruit, something that would lead to spiritual corruption, perhaps even damnation. It was a plant without mention in the Bible, a critical point for a society that often sought divine validation for all aspects of life. If God had intended it for human consumption, surely it would have been mentioned in Scripture, or at least have a clear, sun-drenched growth habit. Its foreign origin, coupled with its hidden growth, made it easy to demonize. It became a symbol of the unknown, the untamed, the potentially dangerous forces lurking just beyond the boundaries of familiar, divinely sanctioned existence. Other, perhaps less dramatic, but equally damaging rumors proliferated. Some believed it caused fever, others that it would lead to sterility in women or impotence in men. There were whispers it could induce madness or simply a general malaise, a constant feeling of weakness and ill health. The fact that its leaves and stems were indeed mildly toxic, and the berries quite so, meant that any attempt to consume the frinrong part of the plant would result in illness, further validating the widespread fear and confirming the rumors. A child, out of curiosity, might chew on a leaf and experience nausea, leading to a swift communal condemnation of the entire plant. These individual incidents, however isolated or misinformed, served to reinforce the collective paranoia. The weight of these rumors was immense. It created a powerful social taboo, a deep-seated aversion that made it not just undesirable, but almost unthinkable to consume. To eat the devil's apple was to invite illness, misfortune, and perhaps even eternal damnation upon oneself and one's family. It was a profound psychological barrier, far more formidable than any physical obstacle. The potato, therefore, remained an outcast, not for any inherent flaw, but for the dark projections of human fear and superstition that clung to it. Like the very earth it sprang from, it lay buried, not just in the soil, but beneath layers of ancient dread and unreasoning prejudice, patiently awaiting a time when rational thought, or perhaps sheer desperation, would finally unearth its true, benign nature. The deep skepticism and outright fear surrounding the potato meant that its first real, widespread acceptance in Europe came not as human sustenance, but as humble fodder for livestock. This was a turning point, a subtle shift in its long, arduous journey, yet one tinged with the bittersweet taste of being deemed fit only for animals. It was a demotion, certainly, from its revered status in the Andes, but it was also a crucial step, a silent, unglamorous victory against the tide of human prejudice. Imagine a European farm in the late 16th or early 17th century. The air is thick with the earthy smells of manure, damp straw, and the musky scent of animals. Pigs grunt contentedly in their pens, their powerful snouts constantly rooting and sniffing, seeking out any edible morsel. These animals, with their indiscriminate palates and robust digestive systems, were the ideal candidates for a cautious experiment with the new, suspicious tubers. Farmers, observing the pigs' foraging habits, would often throw them scraps, spoiled vegetables, or anything else deemed unsuitable for human consumption. It was in this context that the potato likely made its quiet debut as a feedstuff. Perhaps a handful of the strange tubers, dug from a neglected corner of a monastery garden, or deemed too unappetizing even for the poorest peasant, were tossed into a pigsty. The farmer, perhaps with a touch of morbid curiosity, would have watched. The pigs, ever eager for a new treat, would have sniffed, rooted, and then without hesitation consumed the knobby, dirt-covered potatoes. Days would pass, then weeks, and slowly and perceptibly, a crucial observation would be made. The pigs were not falling ill. They were not frothing at the mouth, not exhibiting the signs of poisoning associated with the nightshade family. In fact, they seemed to thrive, growing fatter, their snorts just as vigorous, their appetite undiminished. This was the quiet, undeniable proof that the potato, at least in its tuber form, was not deadly. It might not be a delicacy, It might not be suitable for the discerning palate of humans, but it was undeniably safe for their animals. And in a pragmatic, agricultural society, safety, even for livestock, was a valuable commodity. The pig, in its unassuming role, became the potato's unwitting advocate, its living proof of innocence. The shift in perception, though minimal, was profound. It moved the potato from the realm of dangerous unknown to safe but lowly animal feed. This incremental acceptance began in isolated pockets, gradually spreading as the observation was replicated across farms. The potato became a cheap, readily available supplementary feed. It required little care once planted, growing reliably in the soil that often struggled to produce other crops. Farmers could plant a field of potatoes, dig them up in the autumn, and store them through the winter in cool, dark cellars, providing a steady, reliable food source for their livestock when other fodder was scarce. The rhythmic thud of potatoes being tossed into a feeding trough, the contented grunts of the pigs. These were the new, quiet sounds associated with the potato's presence in European agriculture. The potato, the silent traveler from the Andes, found itself embraced, not by human hands reaching for nourishment, but by the snouts of pigs turning over the earth, consuming it without judgment. This was a critical step in its long journey of integration. It meant that potato fields, though perhaps small and tucked away, began to appear with greater frequency. It meant that the plant itself was cultivated, understood, and its growth cycle observed. It moved from being an exotic curiosity or a dangerous anomaly to a mundane, if lowly, part of the farm ecosystem. This status, as animal feed, offered a shield against the pervasive rumors and fears that still gripped many communities regarding human consumption. If someone dared to suggest the devil's apple could cause leprosy, a farmer could calmly point to his thriving pigs demonstrating its harmlessness. At least in that context, it provided a tangible living counter argument to the fantastical tales. It was a slow, quiet process of desensitization, gradually accustoming people to the sight, the smell, and the presence of the potato without the immediate paralyzing fear that once accompanied it. The potato, in its stoic patience, accepted this role. It continued its underground work, silently converting sunlight into energy, expanding its starchy tubers, providing sustenance without complaint. Its journey was still subterranean, in a way relegated to the earth and the mouths of animals, far from the human dinner table. But it was a step up from utter rejection. It was a foothold, a quiet claim to a small piece of European soil, a testament to its resilience and its enduring, uncomplaining nature. The sight of pigs eagerly devouring potatoes might not have inspired human appetites, but it did erode some of the deeper, more irrational fears. It showed that the plant was not inherently cursed or poisonous. It provided a practical, albeit humble, purpose. The potato had finally found a place, however low on the hierarchy, within the European agricultural landscape, patiently waiting for the day when human stomachs, not just those of swine, would finally recognize its true value. The quiet rustle of leaves in the fields of potatoes, destined for the pigsty, was a testament to this first, grudging yet utterly essential, acceptance of the silent underground traveler. The ground, once yielding a diversity of foraged greens and occasional game, became harder, more barren. The granaries once full echoed with emptiness. The children's laughter grew thin, replaced by a quiet, pervasive hum of hunger that settled deep in the bones, a gnawing ache that grew with each passing dawn. In the small, smoke-filled hovels, faces grew gaunt, eyes wide with a desperate, unspoken question. The familiar foods, the grains and pulses that had sustained generations, were simply no more. Winter winds whipped through the threadbare garments, and the cold, usually a companion, now felt like a predatory presence, sharpening the edges of an already unbearable reality. It was in these bleak corners, in the shadows of dire necessity, that the forgotten root began its slow, quiet ascent. The potato, still largely an object of suspicion, a peculiar foreign curiosity, lay buried in the earth, a silent promise. For those who had nothing left, for those whose cupboards were bare and whose fields had been ravaged by disease, drought, or the careless boots of marching armies, the rules began to bend. The whispers of fear, the old tales of leprosy and ill fortune, still lingered a ghostly echo in the hungry minds. But the grumble of an empty stomach often drowned out the loudest superstition. Imagine a farmer, his hands calloused and raw, his gaze hollowed by weeks of scarcity. He walks his land, not in expectation of a harvest, but in a weary search for anything at all, that might ward off the creeping chill of starvation. His neighbors, equally desperate, might have already turned to roots and weeds, to bark stripped from trees, to anything that promised a momentary filling. And then perhaps he remembers the strange plants, those odd, unloved growths with their unassuming green leaves and delicate, almost ornamental flowers that grew in a neglected corner, or perhaps were abandoned after a nobleman's fleeting botanical fancy. He remembers the warnings, the hushed tales of devil's apples, of the illness they might bring, but the chill of the evening air against his empty belly, the sight of his children's drawn faces, proved a more potent argument than any old wives' tale. With a heavy, resigned sigh, he might take up a crude spade or perhaps just his bare, trembling hands. The earth is cold, resistant. He digs, slowly, deliberately, not with hope, but with a quiet, grim determination. The soil clings to his fingers, the rich, dark smell of the earth a stark contrast to the emptiness within him. And there, beneath the surface, nestled in the protective dark, he finds them. The lumpy, misshapen tubers. They are not beautiful. They are not golden. They do not gleam like silver. They are simply there, a muted brown, a dusty ochre, sometimes streaked with a hint of purple, clinging to the root system like forgotten thoughts. He brings them back to his humble dwelling, a handful of earthly lumps. The light of the sputtering hearth flickers across the small, pale faces of his family, eyes watching his every move with a mixture of apprehension and a fragile, nascent curiosity. The smell of the raw potato is earthy, unassuming, perhaps even a little strange. There is no joy in this discovery, no celebration, only a profound, heavy silence, a quiet understanding of the precipice upon which they stand. The preparation is simple, born of necessity. There is no elaborate recipe, no culinary finesse, just the basic, primal act of making something edible. The skins are scraped away, perhaps imperfectly, with a dull knife or even a thumbnail. The knife slips, catches, and the rough texture of the potato reveals itself. The tubers are then dropped into a pot of water, perhaps already steaming over the embers, water painstakingly collected from a distant well or a frozen stream. The fire crackles, a small, defiant warmth against the cold, unyielding world outside. The potatoes boil, slowly, reluctantly at first, then softening, releasing a faint, starchy aroma into the cramped space. It is not the rich, savory smell of roasting meat or bubbling stew. It is something plainer, more fundamental, yet in that moment undeniably comforting. The first taste is hesitant. A small piece, still hot from the pot, is brought to the lips. The texture is unfamiliar, softer than a turnip, less sweet than a carrot. It is bland, earthy, and filling, a quiet miracle. There is no explosion of flavor, no gastronomic delight, only the slow, steady dulling of hunger's sharp edge. The gnawing ache in the stomach begins to recede, replaced by a humble, solid warmth. A whisper of energy returns to the weary limbs. This was not a choice made out of preference, but out of the sheer, uncompromising will to survive. It was the food of last resorts, the silent, unassuming guardian against oblivion. And in its quiet, starchy generosity, the potato, for the first time in many European homes, began to earn a grudging respect. It wasn't loved, not yet, but it was eaten. And in those desolate years, in the quiet desperation of famine's grip, that was more than enough. It was the first tentative step out of the shadows, a humble offering of life in the face of death, a silent earthen anchor against the relentless currents of scarcity. Its introduction to the European diet, rather than a triumphant culinary embrace, began as a testament to human resilience in the face of utter destitution. It was born of silence, of necessity, of the quiet dignity of simply enduring. The flickering oil lamps cast long, dancing shadows across the cramped workroom, illuminating stacks of neatly bound botanical texts, specimen jars filled with pickled curiosities, and the careful drawings of plants meticulously rendered in ink and wash. In this quiet, intellectual realm, far removed from the desperate hunger of the common folk, lived a man whose mind was as precise and ordered as the library he kept. Antoine Augustin Parmentier, a French pharmacist, agronomist, and nutritionist, moved with a quiet, studious grace through his world of scientific inquiry. His journey with the humble potato, however, began not in the hallowed halls of academia, but in the stark, unyielding confines of a Prussian prisoner, of war camp. It was during the 7 Years' War, a brutal, protracted conflict that scoured the European continent, that Parmentier found himself captured and interned by the Prussians. In the camps, food was scarce, often unpalatable and relentlessly monotonous. Yet, there was one staple readily available, though often scorned by his fellow prisoners, the potato. The Prussians themselves, having embraced the tuber to some extent as a military ration, provided it as a cheap, filling sustenance for their captives. Parmentier, with his keen scientific curiosity, and perhaps a practical streak born of necessity, observed. He ate, he lived. While many of his peers fell ill, weakened by the poor diet, Parmentier found himself not only surviving but thriving on this much maligned root. It was a revelation, a quiet, personal epiphany in the midst of war's chaos. The devil's apple had sustained him, kept him strong, allowed him to endure. Upon his release and return to France, the memory of the potato's quiet strength remained. France, like much of Europe, still harbored deep-seated suspicions about the plant. It was believed to cause leprosy, scrofula, and various other maladies. It was food for pigs, not for people. Yet Parmentier, a man of intellect and gentle persistence, knew otherwise. He knew its potential. His mission, then, became a quiet, strategic campaign to transform a continent's perception, to lift the potato from the shadows of disdain into the light of common acceptance. He understood that direct confrontation would achieve little. People clinging to ancient prejudices were rarely swayed by mere facts. Instead, Parmentier chose a path of subtle suggestion, of artful demonstration, of quiet, almost theatrical persuasion. He was a master of indirect influence, a patient advocate for a patient plant. One of his most renowned strategies was the all-potato feast. Imagine a grand dining room, perhaps in Paris, bathed in the soft glow of candlelight. Distinguished guests, the luminaries of French society, scientists, philosophers, even royalty, gather around a table laden not with traditional French delicacies, but with a surprising array of dishes, each featuring the humble potato as its star. Potato soup, rich and creamy, potato bread, warm and fragrant, potato gratin, golden and bubbling, delicate potato pastries, even potato-based liquors. Each dish was prepared with the utmost care, presented with elegance, its flavors speaking for themselves. Parmentier himself, a calm and gracious host, would explain the nutritional virtues, the versatility, the sheer goodness of this overlooked vegetable. He made the scorned tuber a novelty, an object of sophisticated intrigue rather than rustic suspicion. Benjamin Franklin, an American ambassador to France and a man of practical wisdom, was among those who attended these dinners, and reportedly became an enthusiastic supporter. These were not loud, boisterous affairs, but quiet intellectual gatherings where conversation flowed as smoothly as the wine, and the potato, silently, began to win over hearts and palates, one delicious bite at a time. Another ingenious tactic involved cultivating potato patches on royal land, specifically in the Plaine de Sablons just outside Paris. During the day he would have these fields guarded, ostentatiously, by armed soldiers. The sight of armed guards protecting a field of what was considered mere pig feed immediately piqued public curiosity. Why would something so worthless require such vigilant protection? The human mind, ever drawn to the forbidden, began to wonder if something truly valuable lay hidden within those rows. Then, subtly, during the night, Parmentier would instruct the guards to be a little less vigilant. The guards would look the other way, allowing local peasants whose curiosity had been sufficiently stoked to sneak into the fields and steal some of the precious tubers. The potatoes were not given away freely, for what is freely given is often undervalued. They were stolen, and thus imbued with the allure of forbidden fruit, something desirable and worth risking for. The peasants, having acquired these forbidden potatoes, would then, out of a combination of stealth and genuine hunger, plant them in their own gardens. They discovered, to their surprise, that the potatoes grew well, yielded abundantly, and most importantly were perfectly safe to eat. This subtle, almost playful subversion of expectation slowly, quietly, spread the potato across the French countryside, not through decree, but through the irresistible pull of human nature. Parmentier also had a knack for enlisting royal support, not through force, but through gentle flattery and practical demonstration. He presented bouquets of potato flowers to King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. The Queen, known for her love of fashion and novelty, sometimes wore a potato flower in her hair. This small, elegant gesture, turning the humble flower into a fashionable accessory, lent a surprising air of aristocratic approval to the entire plant. It was a quiet, visual endorsement, a soft whisper of acceptance from the highest echelons of society. Through these calm, calculated, and often indirect methods, Parmentier slowly chipped away at centuries of prejudice. He understood that true change often happens, not with a thunderclap, but with a series of quiet nudges, a gentle reshaping of perception. One dinner, one stolen tuber, one royal flower at a time. He was a testament to the power of patient advocacy, a man who, with quiet resolve, helped pull a silent traveler from the depths of the earth into the heart of European cuisine. His legacy was not one of grand pronouncements, but of thoughtful, intelligent persuasion, allowing the potato, at last, to speak for itself, quietly, nourishingly at the tables of the world. Far to the north, in the vast plains and forests of the Kingdom of Prussia, a different kind of quiet force was at work. Here, the embrace of the potato was not born of gentle persuasion or subtle culinary arts, but of strategic necessity and the unwavering will of an enlightened monarch. Frederick II, known to history as Frederick the Great, surveyed his realm with the sharp, calculating eye of a military genius and a benevolent, if autocratic, leader. He understood the precariousness of his kingdom, surrounded by potential adversaries, and the vital importance of a well-fed populace, particularly one that could endure the rigors of war. Grains were susceptible to blight, to erratic weather, and to the destructive march of armies. A more reliable, more robust food source was desperately needed. Frederick, unlike many of his contemporaries, was not swayed by old superstitions or aesthetic disdain for the potato. He had witnessed firsthand its resilience and its ability to feed soldiers. He saw it not as a devil's apple, but as a strategic asset, a silent weapon against famine, a sturdy foundation for his kingdom's prosperity. His approach was direct, pragmatic, and unyielding, yet delivered with a quiet, undeniable authority that permeated every corner of his domain. In the mid-18th century, Frederick issued a series of royal edicts, often referred to as Cardinal Buffel, Twee, the potato orders. These were not mere suggestions. They were commands, clear and unequivocal, flowing from the highest authority down to the most remote villages. Imagine the scene in a small Prussian village. The village elder, perhaps a stern-faced man with lines etched deep into his brow from years of toil, stands before his assembled community. In his hand, a crisp official document, stamped with a royal seal. He reads aloud, his voice resonating through the hushed square, the words of the king. The gist is simple: plant potatoes. The villagers listen, their faces a mixture of skepticism, resignation, and perhaps a flicker of quiet defiance. They are farmers, rooted in tradition, wary of novelty, especially when imposed from above. They know their land, their crops, their rhythms. This strange root, this foreigner, still carries the echoes of suspicion. They murmur among themselves, old wives' tales resurfacing like stubborn weeds. It causes fever, it poisons the blood. It makes children sickly. The collective doubt hangs in the crisp Prussian air, thick and palpable. But the king's will was absolute. Soon royal officials would arrive. Picture the creaking wagons, laden with sacks of seed potatoes, rumbling along the muddy tracks, pulling into the village square. These are not grand, ceremonial arrivals, but quiet, efficient distributions. The officials, often stern and unsmiling, would oversee the unloading, explaining, with measured tones, the king's directive. They would demonstrate, perhaps, the proper way to plant the tubers, to mound the earth around them, to care for these new, foreign plants. The seed potatoes themselves are modest, earthy lumps, not unlike the ones discovered in famine's desperate embrace. Their rough skin, the faint sprouts already emerging, held no intrinsic appeal. The farmers, though suspicious, knew the consequences of disobedience. Frederick was not a king to be trifled with. And so, with heavy hearts and reluctant hands, they began to prepare their fields. The familiar rhythm of plowing, harrowing, and seeding was now interrupted by this new, unfamiliar task. Rows were marked out, the soil turned over, and the potato seeds, each one a silent representative of the king's unwavering decree, were carefully, if unenthusiastically, placed into the cool earth. The act of planting was a quiet one. No celebratory songs, no communal feast, just the rhythmic thump of a spade, the soft rustle of soil, the bent backs of men and women working under the vast Prussian sky. They watched the unfamiliar plants emerge from the earth, their green shoots tentative at first, then growing stronger, unfurling their leaves, eventually blooming with modest white or purple flowers. The season progressed, slow and steady. The fields that had once grown only rye or wheat now held these new strange inhabitants, transforming the agricultural landscape, one small, green plant at a time. Their skepticism lingered, a quiet hum beneath the surface of their compliant actions. Would these devil's apples truly provide sustenance? Would they bring forth illness? Yet as the autumn approached and the time for harvest arrived, a surprising truth began to reveal itself. Beneath the unassuming foliage, nestled deep in the cool, dark earth, lay an astonishing abundance. The yield was far greater than that of traditional grains in a similar plot of land. Sacks upon sacks of potatoes were dug from the soil, heavy with the promise of food. The potatoes were stored in cool, dark cellars, simple earthen pits designed to protect them from frost. And as the harsh Prussian winter descended, bringing with it the familiar specter of hunger, the villagers began to discover the quiet strength of Frederick's foresight. The potatoes, boiled or baked, provided a steady, reliable source of nutrition. They were filling, long-lasting, and kept the wolf from the door. The initial reluctance slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to give way to a quiet, grudging acceptance. The king's wisdom, initially met with doubt, proved itself in the most fundamental way possible by simply keeping people alive. This was the quiet triumph of the potato orders. Not through eloquent speeches or grand celebrations, but through the patient, unwavering enforcement of a pragmatic vision, and the slow, undeniable proof that emerged from the very earth itself. Frederick the Great understood that sometimes the quietest changes, the ones forced upon a resistant populace for their own good, are the ones that lay the most enduring foundations. The potato, once again, had been called from its underground waiting, this time by royal decree, to become a quiet, steadfast pillar of a kingdom's survival. It was a transformation driven by power, yes, but its ultimate success lay in the simple, undeniable fact that it worked silently and effectively, beneath the earth and at the tables of the common people. The distant rumble, the mournful cry carried on the wind, these were the harbingers of a darkness far older and more primal than any shadow the night could cast. Across the sprawling landscapes of Europe, from the sun-drenched fields of France to the misty plains of Prussia, the specter of war was a familiar, unwelcome guest. Armies, vast and hungry, marched with a brutal indifference to the delicate rhythms of cultivation. Their boots, heavy with purpose, trampled not just the soil but the very livelihoods of generations. Above ground, the golden oceans of wheat, the swaying stalks of barley, the neatly aligned rows of cabbage, all were tragically vulnerable. A single day's march could turn a season's painstaking labor into a desolate wasteland. Fields stripped bare, granaries plundered, the promise of harvest reduced to ash and bitter dust. The farmers, who had poured their sweat and hope into nurturing these exposed treasures, watched in helpless despair as their sustenance vanished, consumed by the relentless maw of conflict. But beneath the surface, a silent sentinel stood guard. While the armies scythed through the visible world, leaving ruin in their wake, the potato remained undisturbed, tucked away in its earthen sanctuary. It was a humble, unpretentious tuber, yet it possessed a resilience that defied the violence above. A grain field, once cut, was gone, a potato field, even if its leafy green tops were trampled into oblivion, held its precious cargo safely, silently, patiently beneath the earth's protective embrace. The soil, once a symbol of endless toil, became a hidden vault, shielding this unassuming root from the grasping hands of hungry soldiers. They might burn the cottages, scatter the livestock, and pillage the visible stores, but the earth kept its secrets, and among those secrets was the quiet promise of the potato. Imagine the desolation, a village recently swept clean by the tide of war. Homes are charred husks, the well perhaps fouled, the few remaining animals scattered to the winds. The air hangs heavy with the acrid scent of smoke and despair. The surviving villagers, gaunt and hollow-eyed, pick through the rubble, searching for any scrap, any sign of what was. The once proud grain fields now lie flat, a mosaic of broken stalks and churned mud. Nothing visible remains. Yet, for those who knew the earth's deeper rhythms, a faint hope persisted. With a worn shovel, or perhaps just bare, calloused hands, they would venture to the edge of what was once their field. The act was a quiet prayer, a desperate gamble against utter starvation. The digging began, a rhythmic scrape and thud against the resistant soil. Each scoop of earth was a moment of suspense, a small leap of faith into the unknown. Then, a discovery. Not a gleaming jewel or a hidden pouch of coin, but something far more precious in that moment. A lump of brown, mud-caked earth that, with a gentle brush, revealed itself to be a potato. And then another and another, hidden just inches below the surface, insulated from the ravages above, lay a network of these unassuming treasures. They were cold, firm, sometimes still clinging to a wisp of a root, but they were there. They were sustenance. They were survival. The discovery wasn't a triumphant shout, but a quiet, almost reverent exhalation of relief. This wasn't a bounty, but it was enough. Enough to keep a family from succumbing to the gnawing emptiness. Enough to rekindle a flicker of hope in the heart of despair. The potato became, in essence, a silent pact between the earth and its most desperate inhabitants. It offered a form of food security that no other crop of its time could quite match. While armies devoured everything in their path, the potato simply waited, a subterranean guardian. It represented a quiet defiance, a way for the common people to hold on to a shred of control in a world gone mad. In an era where a year's worth of effort could be obliterated in a single afternoon, the potato offered a peculiar kind of solace. It was there, beneath the surface, patiently biding its time, a dependable friend in the darkest hours. This unassuming tuber, often maligned and misunderstood, transformed into a lifeline, a hidden granary, a testament to the earth's quiet generosity, sustaining communities through the tumultuous currents of war and famine. It was not glorious. It was not celebrated with fanfare, but its reliability was its own powerful declaration, a whispered promise of continuity in a world constantly threatening to unravel. Following its circuitous journey across oceans and through skeptical minds, the potato found an unexpected embrace in a land where its particular nature could truly flourish. Imagine a place where the air hangs thick with a gentle mist, where rain is a frequent visitor, painting the landscape in 1,000 shades of verdant green. This was Ireland, a country whose very soil seemed to have been sculpted for the quiet growth of the potato. The cool, damp climate, the often acidic and well-drained earth, the long temperate growing season, all converged to create a near-perfect environment for this humble Andean traveler. It was as if the land itself extended a welcoming hand, offering a place where the potato, after centuries of being an outcast, could finally feel truly at home. The Irish farmers, a people long accustomed to hardship and living close to the land, recognized its potential with an instinctual wisdom. Unlike grains, which demanded vast, flat fields and were susceptible to the vagaries of weather and the swift passage of armies, potatoes could be grown in smaller, more irregular plots. They thrived in the poor, rocky soils that might yield little else. A small patch, meticulously tended, could produce an astonishing abundance, a concentrated source of energy and sustenance that belied its unassuming appearance. For a population living on the margins where land was scarce and every calorie counted, this was nothing short of a miracle. The integration was not a sudden, dramatic affair, but a slow, organic merging, like a river finding its path to the sea. Initially, perhaps, there was the same European skepticism, the lingering suspicion of its origins and its peculiar underground growth. But hunger, a most persuasive teacher, quickly overcame such qualms. A farmer, perhaps with a family growing, noticed the resilience of the plant, the sheer volume it yielded from a modest effort. He saw that his pigs thrived on it, and cautiously, then with more confidence, he began to taste it himself. The texture, mealy and satisfying, the taste, earthy and mild, quickly became comforting. It was filling, it was available, and crucially, it was relatively easy to grow. The potato rooted itself deeply in the fabric of Irish life, becoming far more than just a foodstuff. It transformed landscapes, with small, neatly ridged potato beds appearing on hillsides and in tucked-away corners. It shaped daily routines from the spring planting, a communal effort, to the autumn harvest, a season of both hard labor and quiet abundance. The aroma of boiling potatoes began to mingle with the scent of peat smoke, becoming an olfactory signature of countless Irish homes. Families grew not just in number, but in strength, sustained by the steady supply of this single, remarkable crop. Children, once frail and prone to illness, now had a more reliable source of nourishment, allowing them to grow stronger, to play longer, to live fuller lives. The daily ritual of eating potatoes was a simple, grounding act. Gathered around a humble hearth, the family would share a common bowl of boiled or roasted potatoes, often accompanied by little else, perhaps a dab of butter, if fortune smiled, or a sprinkle of salt. The warmth of the freshly cooked tuber in the palm, the satisfying starchiness on the tongue, these were not luxuries, but the very essence of survival and comfort. This silent underground traveler, once dismissed and feared, had found its true calling in the Emerald Isle. It became the bedrock of the Irish diet, the silent provider that allowed a struggling population to not just subsist, but to forge a distinct identity and culture intertwined with the fortunes of this humble root. It truly was a story of finding a soulmate, a quiet, almost poetic synchronicity between a plant and a people, where the climate, the soil, and the needs of a community aligned to create a profound and enduring bond. For centuries, the potato had lingered in the shadows, a curiosity in botanical gardens, a fodder for livestock, or a last resort for the desperate. Its journey from the cool, dark soil of the Andean highlands to the bustling, often chaotic kitchens of European homes was not a swift, celebrated march, but a quiet, patient infiltration. It began not with fanfare, but with hesitant curiosity, a tentative step into the culinary unknown. Imagine a humble kitchen in a peasant's cottage, perhaps in the late 17th or early 18th century. The air would be thick with the earthy scent of wood smoke from the hearth, mingled with the aroma of drying herbs and perhaps a simmering pot of stew made from root vegetables and grains. The tools were simple: a heavy iron pot, a wooden spoon, a sharp knife, and perhaps a rudimentary mortar and pestle. The diet was often monotonous, relying heavily on bread, porridge, and seasonal vegetables. New ingredients were regarded with suspicion, especially those with unfamiliar origins. The first potato to truly cross the threshold from the field into the kitchen often arrived not as a prized commodity, but as a reluctant experiment. Perhaps a farmer, seeing his pigs thrive on them, decided to take a small handful home. His wife, accustomed to the familiar rhythm of peeling turnips or slicing carrots, would eye the lumpy dirt, caked tubers with a mix of apprehension and grudging practicality. How to prepare this devil's apple? Reports of its poisonous leaves and berries would still echo in the back of her mind, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. The initial approach was often the simplest: boiling. The potato would be scrubbed clean, its dark, uneven skin peeled away to reveal the pale, starchy flesh beneath, dropped into a pot of water bubbling over the open flame. It would sink, then slowly soften. The steam rising from the pot would carry a faint, unfamiliar aroma, farty, earthy, subtle, utterly unlike the robust fragrance of boiling cabbage or the rich scent of meat. There was no sizzle, no vibrant color change, just a quiet transformation. When finally deemed cooked, soft enough to be pierced by a fork, it would be lifted from the water. The first bite would be approached with a mixture of courage and trepidation. What would it taste like? Would it be bitter, unpleasant, or worse, 'cause illness? The texture, mealy and yielding, would be a new sensation. The taste, mild and somewhat bland on its own, would likely be a revelation in its simplicity. It was not bitter, it was not overtly strange. It was merely filling. It offered a satisfying weight to the stomach, a quiet comfort that grains, sometimes in short supply, couldn't always provide. This initial, cautious success would slowly pave the way for wider acceptance. One family would try it, then another. Word would spread, not with excited chatter, but with quiet nods of approval amongst neighbors. The blandness, initially a drawback, became an advantage. It absorbed flavors, providing a neutral canvas for whatever meager spices or broths were available. It could be mashed with a little milk or fat, becoming a creamy, comforting dish. It could be roasted in the embers of the fire, its skin crisping, its interior turning soft and fluffy. Slowly, gradually, the potato began to shed its reputation as a foreign oddity and a dangerous curiosity. Its true triumph in the kitchen lay in its versatility and its ability to stretch meager resources. A few potatoes, combined with whatever else was at hand. A bit of onion, a few wild herbs, a scrap of cured meat sieved, could be transformed into a hearty, nourishing meal. It provided a reliable carbohydrate, a steady source of energy that allowed people to work longer, to endure colder winters. It democratized sustenance, offering a readily available, nutrient-rich food to the poorest segments of society. A food that was not the exclusive preserve of the wealthy. The shift was almost imperceptible, a quiet revolution happening in countless hearths across the continent. Over decades, then a century, the potato moved from the edges of the culinary landscape to its very center. It became a staple, a foundational element of countless dishes, its presence assumed rather than questioned. The fear faded, replaced by familiarity, then by a deep-seated reliance. The devil's apple had finally found its redemption, transforming into the daily bread for millions, a testament to its intrinsic value and the enduring human need for simple, honest sustenance. Its journey from the dark underground of the Andean mountains to the warm, glowing heart of the European kitchen was complete, a silent testament to persistence, patience, and the slow, inevitable triumph of practical necessity over ancient prejudice. The quiet transformation, a subtle alchemy of earth and time, has gifted us a remarkable spectrum of this humble tuber. From its solitary wild ancestor nestled in the Andes, carefully nurtured and guided by human hands, the potato has blossomed into a magnificent array of forms, each with its own story, its own texture, its own whispered purpose. Imagine, if you will, the journey of a single uniform seed, a singular potential, slowly branching out, responding to the gentle urgings of soil, climate, and the selective care of countless generations of farmers. This isn't a dramatic metamorphosis, but a patient unfolding, a quiet revelation of inner diversity. Consider first the potatoes destined for mashing, those gentle giants of comfort. Picture a russet perhaps, or a Maris piper, its skin a rough, unassuming canvas. But beneath that earthen exterior lies a secret, a high starch content that, when cooked, yields a floury, almost ethereal flesh. When mashed, it becomes a cloud, a soft, yielding embrace on the palate. Imagine the steam rising, a warm, earthy perfume filling the air, as a fork or a masher gently breaks down its structure. It accepts butter and cream, herbs and spices, with an eager grace absorbing flavors as a thirsty sponge absorbs water. The resulting texture is not merely smooth. It is a velvet tea, a warm, comforting blanket for the senses. It whispers of hearth and home, of quiet evenings and shared meals. Each bite is a soft sigh, a comforting reassurance, a testament to the potato's inherent generosity. This variety, through centuries of careful selection, has perfected the art of dissolution, of offering itself wholly to create something new, something profoundly soothing. Its journey has been one of becoming less defined, more fluid, ultimately more receptive to nourishment and flavor. It is the potato as pure comfort, a gentle hug in edible form. Then, shift your mind to those potatoes renowned for their baking and roasting prowess. Envision a sturdy Yukon Gold or a vibrant red Bliss. Their skins might be thinner, smoother, perhaps a delicate gold or a blushing crimson. Cut into them and you'll find a denser, waxier flesh, still yielding, but with a more robust character. When roasted or baked, these potatoes undergo a different kind of transformation. The outside crisps and browns, forming a delectable golden armor, sometimes even glistening with the faint sheen of oil and seasoning. Inside, the flesh softens to a creamy tenderness. But crucially, it retains its structure, its individual cells holding their shape with a quiet dignity. There is a slight resistance, a pleasant chewiness, a deeper, nuttier flavor that speaks of caramelized sugars and concentrated earthiness. These are the potatoes that stand firm, that proudly hold their form, whether diced into hearty wedges or presented whole, split open like a warm treasure, filled jewel. They are the bedrock of a robust meal, offering substance and satisfaction without ever demanding attention. Their journey has been about resilience, about holding together, about offering a firm foundation upon which other flavors can build. They are the potato as steadfast companion, a pillar of quiet strength. And do not forget the delicate new potatoes or the charming, elongated fingerlings. Often harvested young, their skins are almost translucent, a mere whisper of protection over a creamy, slightly sweet flesh. These are the potatoes that want to be gently boiled, steamed, or simply dressed with a sprinkle of fresh herbs. They speak of spring, of renewal, of a lightness that contrasts with the heavier varieties. Each bite is a small, tender revelation, a burst of fresh, clean flavor that hints at the vibrant life of the soil. They are small wonders, each perfectly formed, often eaten with their skins on, celebrating their natural beauty and simple elegance. Their journey has been one of gentle maturation, of offering their youthful vitality, a quiet promise of freshness and simple joy. This incredible diversity, this symphony of textures and tastes, is a profound gift. It is the gift of time, of observation, and of patient cultivation. Imagine the countless anonymous hands that, over centuries, selected the tubers that grew a little softer, a little firmer, a little more golden. It was a slow, quiet dialogue between humanity and the earth, a gentle persuasion, a subtle guiding of nature's inherent variability. Each new variety isn't a sudden invention, but a patient evolution, a quiet adaptation to specific climates, soils, and culinary desires. It speaks to the potato's inherent generosity, its willingness to adapt, to transform, to offer itself in myriad ways. It also speaks to the enduring curiosity and ingenuity of human beings, our silent, persistent quest to find nourishment and pleasure in the natural world around us. This tapestry of forms, from the starchy to the waxy, the fluffy to the firm, the delicate to the robust, is a testament to the potato's quiet strength and its boundless capacity for surprise. It's a gentle reminder that even the most unassuming beginnings can lead to a world of rich, satisfying variety, unfolding slowly, patiently, like a silent story told across generations. each distinct form, a new chapter in the journey of this humble traveler, now fully at home in the world, embraced for all its quiet, delicious nuances. And now, as we contemplate these diverse forms, let us gently shift our focus, returning to a more fundamental, more primal aspect of the potato, its very essence, its connection to the earth from which it springs. Close your eyes if you wish, and let your imagination descend into the cool, dark embrace of the soil. Picture a field, perhaps on a cool, dewy morning. Just as the first hints of dawn begin to soften the edges of the horizon, the air is still, carrying only the faint whisper of a breeze through distant leaves. And then envision a hand, strong yet gentle, reaching down, feeling the resistance of the earth. And then, with a slow, deliberate movement, a spade or a fork is plunged into the soil. Hear the soft, muffled thump as the soil yields, a sound that speaks of richness and density. See the dark earth tumbling, breaking apart, revealing hidden treasures. And there it is, a freshly dug potato, still clinging to its native element. It emerges, perhaps not pristine, but adorned with tiny particles of damp soil, a delicate veil of brown clinging to its skin. Now, let us focus on the scent. Bring that image closer and let your mind inhale deeply. It is not an overpowering scent, not a vibrant perfume that demands attention. Rather, it is a profound earthy aroma, a whisper from the deep. It is the scent of damp soil itself, of rich loam, a quiet blend of decomposition and nascent life. You can detect the mineral coolness, the subtle tang of moisture, a hint of something ancient and deep. It's the smell of roots intertwining, of worms tilling, of nutrients slowly dissolving and reforming. It is the smell of the very ground beneath your feet, concentrated and pure. This is the primordial breath of the potato. It is the essence of its journey, the silent declaration of its belonging to the earth. There is a raw, unadulterated honesty to this fragrance. It bypasses the intellect and speaks directly to a more ancient, primal part of our being. It reminds us of cultivation, of sustenance, of the cyclical rhythms of nature. It's a scent that has been inhaled by farmers for millennia, a signal of harvest, of honest labor, of the earth's endless generosity. Feel its coolness in your imagined hand, the gentle weight, the solid reassurance of its presence. Brush away a few clinging specks of soil with a thumb, and a fainter, sweeter note might emerge, the potato's own subtle aroma mingling with that of the earth. It is a scent that grounds you, connects you to something much larger and more enduring than yourself. It speaks of patience, of silent growth, of strength drawn from the dark. In a world filled with artificial fragrances and processed aromas, the scent of freshly dug earth and the potato it cradles is a pure, unadulterated comfort. It is the smell of truth, of origin, of the very foundation of life. It carries the memory of cool mornings, of dewy fields, of the quiet labor that brings food to our tables. It is not just the scent of a vegetable, it is the scent of deep time, of slow growth, of the unwavering heartbeat of the land. It's a gentle reminder of where we come from, of our inextricable link to the soil, a link as old and as strong as the earth itself. Let that rich, earthy perfume drift gently around you, a silent lullaby from the depths of the world, comforting and profoundly real. This humble scent, so often overlooked, holds within it the entire quiet story of the potato, from its underground heart to its eventual place on our plates. It is the quiet music of the soil, a song of life sung in earthen tones, soothing and deep. Once the potato has offered its quiet bounty from the soil, once its journey through the vibrant sunlight of the field is complete, it enters a new phase, a period of profound stillness and quiet anticipation. This is its time of rest, a gentle slumber in the cool embrace of darkness, a state that beautifully echoes its long, patient wait in the river of history, when it was misunderstood, overlooked, and relegated to the shadows. Imagine a cellar, deep beneath the ground, or a cool, dim pantry tucked away from the bustling life of the house. This is the potato's sanctuary, a place where time seems to slow, where the urgent demands of the outside world are softened to a gentle murmur. The air is cool, with a faint, earthy dampness that feels comforting, almost ancient. No harsh light penetrates this space. Instead, deep shadows cling to corners, creating an atmosphere of undisturbed peace. It is profoundly quiet here, save perhaps for the subtle shifting of the house settling, or the distant, muffled sounds of life above. In this hushed darkness, the potatoes rest. They are nestled together, perhaps in wooden crates, woven baskets, or simply piled gently on a cool earthen floor. Their skins, whether rough or smooth, become guardians of the life within. They are dormant, yet not lifeless. There is a subtle, unseen work occurring within each tuber, a slow metabolism, a careful preservation of nutrients, a holding of breath until the opportune moment. This is a testament to the potato's remarkable resilience, its ability to endure, to patiently wait for its season. Weeks turn into months, and still they remain, a silent promise held in the dark. This long, patient pause in the cellar is not merely a practical storage method. It is a profound echo of the potato's historical journey. For centuries across continents it lay dormant figuratively and literally. It was in the hold of ships, in the earth of monastic gardens, in the dismissive gaze of European peasants. It was there, but its true value, its potential, its quiet strength, remained hidden, waiting for recognition, for acceptance. The cellar, then, becomes a symbolic space for this historical limbo, a period of quiet tenacity, of unwavering existence despite being unseen and unappreciated. The darkness here is not menacing, it is protective. It shields the potatoes from light, which would awaken their dormant eyes and turn them green. It guards against warmth, which would spur premature sprouting and decay. It is a nurturing darkness, a cool cocoon where sustenance is conserved, and life is held in a delicate balance. Feel the coolness of the air, the gentle stillness, the profound sense of security that permeates this space. There is no urgency, no rush, only a deep, unhurried rhythm of preservation. Imagine the faint, earthy scent that lingers in such a place. Fruity, a subtle aroma of stored produce, of cool earth, a scent that hints at bounty and future meals. It is the smell of quiet abundance, of careful planning, of the ancient wisdom of storing food for the leaner months. This storage is a human act of collaboration with the potato's natural inclination towards dormancy, a respectful partnership that extends its quiet generosity far beyond the harvest season. The potatoes in the cellar are like quiet meditators, holding their energy, their life force, in a profound state of inner peace. They do not demand attention. They do not clamor for the light. They simply are, resting, waiting, a reliable presence in the cool, silent depths. This quiet fortitude, this capacity for deep, enduring rest, is one of the potato's most defining characteristics. It teaches us about patience, about the power of stillness, about the hidden strength that lies within waiting. Allow yourself to drift into this image of peaceful storage, of quiet preservation. Feel the comforting presence of these humble tubers, silently sustaining, quietly enduring. The darkness here is a friend, a guardian of their potential, just as it once guarded their secret strength through centuries of obscurity. This deep, unbroken calm, this profound stillness in the dark, is an invitation to your own peaceful rest, a gentle descent into the quiet sanctuary of sleep, where you, too, can find renewal and patient anticipation. The potato, resting quietly in its cool, dark haven, is a symbol of enduring sustenance, a silent promise of nourishment held steadfastly until its moment to shine. It is a presence that does not demand attention, does not boast of its origins, nor does it compete for the spotlight. It simply foresees. It is the quiet anchor in the stormy sea of unpredictable harvests, the sturdy, unassuming foundation upon which countless meals have been built for centuries across continents. Its skin, often mottled and imperfect, hides no grand proclamations, no dazzling promises, only a steady, unwavering commitment to nourishment. Unlike the flamboyant fruits that beckon with vibrant hues and fleeting sweetness, or the delicate greens that wilt at the slightest heat, the potato stands apart. It is a testament to resilience, a master of understated perseverance. Imagine it now, not as an inert object, but as a silent, steadfast companion. It has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of human migrations, the whispers of ancient hearths and the clamor of modern kitchens. Through it all, it has retained its essence, a humble source of sustenance, a quiet provider of energy. Its reliability is etched into its very being, a quality born from generations of growing deep within the earth, protected from the harshness above. It doesn't ask for much, a patch of soil, a little water, and the patient embrace of time. In return, it offers a harvest that is both generous and forgiving, a yield that can stretch through lean seasons, keeping hunger at bay with its solid, starchy embrace. Think of the farmers, through history, who knew that even if the wheat failed, if the rains didn't come for the corn, or if the marauding armies trampled the fields, there was always a hope, a buried treasure, beneath the surface. The potato, with its roots plunged deep, offered a profound sense of security. It was the food of last resort that became the food of first choice. Not because of its exotic appeal, but because of its unwavering dependability. This isn't the story of a dramatic hero. It is the quiet epic of an everyday hero, one that sustains, nourishes, and steadfastly remains, long after other crops have withered or been consumed. It is the very definition of resilience, growing where others falter, holding its energy in reserve, waiting patiently for the moment it is needed most. Its simplicity is its strength. There is no elaborate preparation required to unlock its goodness. A humble fire, a pot of water, and time are often all that's needed. This inherent ease of preparation further solidifies its status as a reliable companion, especially for those whose lives are burdened by hard labor and scarce resources. It adapts, it yields, it provides. It is the quiet hum of certainty in a world often loud with doubt. It is the steady heartbeat of the earth, echoing in every warm, comforting bite. It embodies the essence of durability, a subterranean guardian of energy, steadfastly holding its ground and offering its gifts without fanfare or complaint, simply existing reliably for all who seek its quiet comfort. Its journey from the rugged Andes to the farthest corners of the globe is a testament not to its ambition, but to its inherent capacity to adapt, to thrive, and to provide a silent promise whispered from the earth itself. And so, here we are, at the quiet culmination of a journey that spans centuries and continents, a voyage undertaken by an unsung hero of the culinary world. The potato, that most unassuming of root vegetables, has traversed vast oceans, endured skepticism and scorn, patiently waited in monastic gardens, and slowly, painstakingly, won its way into the hearts and stomachs of humanity. From the crisp, high-altitude air of the Andean mountains, where it first drew life from the earth, to the sprawling fields of Europe, and eventually to your very own kitchen, its path has been one of quiet perseverance. Consider, for a moment, the common potato resting on your counter, perhaps nestled in a basket or a simple bowl. It looks utterly ordinary, doesn't it? A modest orb of earthy brown, maybe a few eyes peeking out hinting at the life within. It gives no grand impression of its storied past, no visible scars from its centuries of struggle for acceptance. Yet within that humble exterior lies a narrative rich with resilience, a testament to the quiet power of simply being. That potato, now so familiar, once whispered only in the ancient Quichua tongue, known solely to the indigenous peoples who understood its profound value. It existed in a world untouched by European ships, untainted by the clamor for gold, thriving in its secluded mountain home. It was the lifeblood of a civilization, a sacred gift from the earth, long before it was ever deemed a demon's apple or a pig's fare by bewildered Europeans. Picture it again, that small, unassuming tuber. Its journey began with a tentative voyage across the vast, dark expanse of the Atlantic, likely tucked away in a ship's hold, jostling amidst other curiosities, forgotten by those who sought only gleaming precious metals. It arrived on foreign shores, an alien presence, a botanical puzzle, planted more out of scientific curiosity than culinary expectation. For nearly 200 years, it remained largely unloved, misunderstood, viewed with suspicion, its true potential hidden beneath layers of cultural bias and scientific apprehension. It watched in its subterranean silence as others sought to define it, to dismiss it, to fear it. But the potato, in its quiet wisdom, simply waited. It continued its ancient dance of growth, drawing nutrients from the soil, faithfully producing its starchy bounty, year after year, offering a silent invitation to those who would finally see beyond its unglamorous exterior. It was embraced by the desperate, then cautiously by the open-minded, and finally by entire nations facing the specter of hunger. It became a steadfast companion during wars, a quiet savior during famines, a bedrock of diets from humble cottages to grand estates. And now, after all that, it rests there, on your kitchen counter, a quiet guest from a distant past, ready to be transformed. It has come full circle from the thin air of the Andes to the warmth of your home, a journey of slow, deliberate integration. When you hold it, feel its smooth, firm skin. Imagine the journey it has taken, the hands that cultivated its ancestors, the soils it has enriched, the countless lives it has sustained. It is not just a potato, it is a living chronicle, a testament to endurance, a silent echo of history, now peacefully awaiting its next transformation on your plate, a quiet miracle in the mundane, a humble offering from a long and winding past, finally truly at home. Now, as the long journey of the humble potato draws to its gentle close, and the whispers of its long quiet history fade into the background, allow yourself to sink deeper into the quiet comfort of this moment. Feel the lingering warmth of the narrative, like the earth itself holding its treasures in the dark. Imagine that you too are like a potato, settling into the cool, dark, fertile soil. The day's demands, the worries, the bright, insistent light of consciousness, all begin to recede, much like the sun dipping below the horizon after a long day in the fields. Feel your body becoming heavier, more grounded, as if drawing a deep, calming energy from the earth beneath you. Let your muscles soften, loosening their grip on any tension they might be holding. Feel the weight of your head against your pillow, a gentle anchor. Your shoulders, your arms, your hands gently releasing, becoming soft and still. Breathe slowly, deeply, allowing each breath to carry you further down into a state of profound peace. Inhale the cool, quiet air. Exhale any remaining thoughts, any lingering wisps of wakefulness, letting them drift away like dry leaves on a gentle breeze. Imagine the deep, cool darkness of a root cellar, quiet and undisturbed. In that space, time moves differently, or perhaps it doesn't move at all. It's simply found. You are safe, protected, enveloped by a profound stillness. This darkness is not empty. It is full of potential, a resting place where energy is gathered, where renewal quietly takes root. Like the potato patiently awaiting its moment, you are now entering a phase of restorative stillness, a period of calm and regeneration. Feel your legs heavy and relaxed, your feet completely at ease. The gentle rhythm of your breathing becomes the only sound, a soft, reassuring hum. Your mind, too, begins to quiet, the constant chatter softening, slowing, until it becomes a tranquil, empty space. There's nothing more to do, nothing more to think about, nowhere else to be. Just this present moment of deep, profound peace. As you drift now, imagine the subtle, earthy fragrance of damp soil, the rich, grounding scent of the earth after a soft rain. It's a primal, comforting aroma, connecting you to the very essence of life, to the ancient cycles of rest and growth. This fragrance fills the quiet corners of your mind, a lullaby from the earth, coaxing you deeper into slumber. You are wrapped in the earth's embrace, secure and serene. You are like a seed buried deep, or a tuber resting in the fertile darkness. Here, in this quiet sanctuary, you are gathering your strength, preparing for the gentle awakening that will come with the new day. For now, there is only rest, only peace, only the profound stillness of the earth, holding you gently, securely, as you sink completely, calmly, into the deepest, most tranquil sleep. Rest now, deeply and peacefully, in the earth's quiet fragrance. Let the darkness embrace you and drift into a long, undisturbed night of restorative slumber.